Mm-mm-mm. Hey, you guys. Welcome back. Don't mind my hair. I'm not looking so cute today, but today I'm going to be doing a little Q&A from questions that you guys have asked for me. So I titled it based on the questions. I picked up a variety of questions that you guys had asked, and I put them together to make them similar from each other. So if you want to ask any questions to be featured in an upcoming podcast, feel free to comment down below because I would love to answer them for you. Whether they're questions for me or life in general or whatever, feel free to ask them. So let's get right into it. If you love this, make sure you check out the podcast Better Than Yesterday on Spotify and all my socials, Jayla_and_baby, and share these with a family, friend, or loved one to help them be the best version of their authentic self. So here we go. Let's get right into it. Hey, you guys, welcome back to the Better Than Yesterday podcast. This is Jayla and Baby, episode 39, and today we're going to be doing a little Q&A. So, I picked a variety of different questions that were kind of under the same type of subjects, so I could title it around the same type of thing, relationship stuff, good, bad, hardships, fortune, whatever it may be, balance. And I'm just going to kind of give you my intake, my perspective, and in hopes that it helps you and opens up your mind to bigger, brighter, and beautiful things. So let's get right into it. And if you love this episode, make sure you share it, post it on your Instagram story, tag me, and comment any questions you may have or send me a DM on Instagram. I'd love to hear from you, what you think. I'm always open to feedback and hearing your opinion and thoughts. So yes, let's get right into it. The first question that I received was my favorite cheat meals. Now, I just want to say I don't have necessarily cheat meals because I firmly believe in a lifestyle rather than a diet. I do eat more clean, but if we're gonna say maybe a meal that I don't have often that I really like, I would say it's always like pastries and ice cream and pancakes. I love my favorite diner, Black Bear Diner. I get a pancake with strawberries and whipped cream, extra syrup, extra butter. Don't mess with me. Like, I love it. And it brings me joy and happiness. So I don't ever think that you should view a certain food as a cheat meal because I think that all foods are amazing and make us feel good and happy. And I'm happy with how I look and I'm happy with the way I am, and I eat foods when I'm craving them and when I want them and in moderation. So I think that's always the key. I don't think there's necessarily a cheat meal. It's just moderation and picking and choosing. I also feel that I've over the years have eaten more clean and been more aware that I listen to my body when I feel like I'll eat a certain food or maybe something more carby, and it makes me tired. So I'm very aware when it comes to certain carbs or starches and how much I'm eating because I don't like the feeling of that lethargic feeling after I'm eating it. So I'm very mindful when I eat starchy things. So that's the one thing, but not necessarily a cheat meal. I think the key is just listening to your body and knowing like, okay, like if I'm gonna have a bunch of stuff to do after this, I'm not gonna eat a whole bunch of this food that's gonna make me tired and feel bloated and gross, right? I'm gonna eat a little, save it for later, and I can still indulge in it because I like that food and I'm not gonna restrict myself. That's key. Number two, I was asked, what are your strengths and what are your weaknesses? Now, this question is a little deep. So let's start off with my strengths, honestly. So I would personally say my strengths are that I'm outgoing, I'm extroverted, I'm pretty driven, I'm disciplined, and I'm very goal oriented. But I think when it comes to my weaknesses, which is okay, everybody has weaknesses. I just want to say that. Everybody has weaknesses, and I do not mind speaking openly about this. My anxiety, I feel like it holds me back a lot. And I think I talk about anxiety like all day long, that I'm embodying that. So I'm trying to, even my boyfriend was saying, like, get it out of your vocabulary. Like, literally, I do. And I watched that Inside Out movie. too when they introduced like, oh, the emotion anxiety. And it really hit me when my younger cousin looked at me and she's like, Jayla, that's so you. And I'm like, oh my gosh. So now my 11-year-old cousin can see I clearly have anxiety. So I need to figure this out, right? So anxiety, I think I'm very hyper fixated on plans, and when plans change, I'm very stuck in my ways. Like when plans shift, it makes me anxious. I need a plan to be in place to feel in control and feel good moving forward, because I think my anxiety triggers the unknown. But the first step, as I always say, is being aware. But that's just me, and I think change as well, but we know that change is good for us and beneficial for us because it helps us grow. So I do little things to help me get out of that and get out of being stuck in my ways. I don't jump to a whole new thing, but like I'll park in a new parking spot. I'll get something a little different in my meal. Like maybe not like cheese and mushroom, that's my favorite. I'll do like Denver mix and mushroom. So stuff like that, or Denver mix and cheese, whatever. I'll change that a little bit. So I'm not so used to being stuck in my ways in a certain routine, in a certain way of being and doing. I think it's very important finding that balance. So I do things to actively change and grow because I want to, not for anybody else, to strengthen myself, but also being mindful that when I overcome these weaknesses, I'm going to develop more. You know, we're all human. It's very important to know that you're not going to have all these strengths without any weaknesses. That's inhumane and unrealistic. So keep that in mind. It's okay to have weaknesses, and it's okay to embrace them because it makes you who you are. And don't change for anybody else unless you feel the need to. That's why it's very huge when people say you can't help someone change something when they're not wanting to. You can't change a person unless they want to make that change, right? So when we talk about someone who's maybe struggling with addiction or weight or their way of eating or maybe going to the gym, you can't help someone get into that unless they are actively being like, yeah, I want to change this. Not because you're pushing them and forcing them to do it because you want them to be better. You can want them to be better, but it's not going to work if they don't want it for themselves. So keep that in mind. It's huge. The next question I was asked is, what do you do when someone you love or care for passes away? This is a heavy question because my dad passed away when I was 4. Now, I don't really remember him. I had not really experienced grief at that time. I just knew the feeling of not having a dad. But my aunt naturally filled that role. So I always grew up with my mom and my aunt, and I always had so much love. And then my uncle and my step aunt. I just have a very non-traditional family, but filled with so much love. So I never felt like I was missing out in that way. But then maybe a year and a half ago, one of my close friends, her name was Bree, she passed away, and that hit me. And I remember sitting there and telling my mom, wow, I feel like there's anxiety in my heart. And she's like, Jayla, that's grief. And I had never felt it before. I had never felt it before. So I remember thinking that, and I'm a very happy person. I remember going to work and talking with friends and trying to be happy and laugh. But it's like I always kept feeling this underlying anxiety in my heart and like this tense feeling in my chest. I just didn't feel like any time I was laughing, having fun, whatever, I just felt that emotion and it was hard. But something that helped me was surrounding myself with people who knew her. And we were telling stories about it. I think they always say too, like they say that I learned this in college. Grief is the most isolating time of your life. And I have a whole episode on grief too, so you could search it up. How to Cope with Grief. So check that out too. Because grieving someone isn't just someone who passes away. It could also be a breakup, a friendship, someone you don't talk to anymore. That's all the same emotion going through grief. They were in your life and now they're taken away. So check out that episode as well. But I think what helped me was surrounding myself with people who walked me through my emotions, heard me out, knew I could call on them when I needed, took me out of this state of mind and took me to do things I love and that reminded me of her and looked at it in a more positive light than having me sit in my emotions and dwell, but also not making me feel like it was my feelings were invalid. So that was hard, but I think just I kept moving on. I think what was really hard for me was that I felt like everybody was just moving on with their life and their day as it didn't happen. But I think what was a hard concept for me to grasp was life goes on. So I won't forget her, but I have to move on with my life. And that was hard in the moment. But something that really helped me, and I think I talked about this in the How to Cope with Grief episode, is they're not gone forever. They just took an earlier bus and you're on a later one. And I think that's absolutely beautiful. So the next question I was asked is, what does it take for a man to win your heart? I thought this was really funny. But I actually have a boyfriend, and I would think what it takes for a man to win my heart is that they're genuinely just kind. I think it's really huge to see how a man or a woman that you're trying to be with interacts not with just you, but the people around you. Because if you are seeing yourself wanting to be with this person for a long time and you see how they treat other people, right, that aren't really important in their life, or maybe their family or their friends, you will know that maybe one day you will be that close with them or not as close. And how they treat these people around you is really important because that reflects on them as a person. So I really do visualize and see how they interact with not just me, but other people, my friends, their family, their parents, how they treat their mom. As they say, how a man treats their mom is how they would end up treating you if you were their wife. I think that's huge. Also, that they just have a good heart, patience, kind, funny, but just overall, there's so many things, but just being patient and kind, because I think being kind is above all the most important. You want a kind, genuine person. The next question I was asked is, what does failure do to a person? It's so funny because I used to think failure was this horrible, bad thing. I did not like failure. I avoided it. But failure helps us overcome obstacles and gain knowledge and insight and learn more. And it's honestly better than success. The more we fail and not let it get to us, the more we learn. Okay, this didn't work. Let's move on to this. Okay, this didn't work. Let's do that. All right, how about we try this? It helps us get to success and be in the process and enjoy it and learn and gain knowledge. That's huge. And it helps us reconstruct and evaluate what happened, what went wrong, what we could do better. It makes us reflect on the circumstance and gather our thoughts and gather our knowledge and apply it again and again till we get it right. And I think that's beautiful. So I think failure helps people grow, because eventually when you keep failing, you realize, okay, this is not working. I got to change something, right? Because insanity is doing the same thing over and over again and expecting a different result. So remember that. I think Albert Einstein said that or something. Someone like that. Don't quote me. That'd be embarrassing if that wasn't it. But anyway, I hope you guys enjoyed this episode. Comment, leave a rate, and review. I would love that. Share it with a friend, family, or loved one, and comment any questions you may have to be featured on another podcast episode. Have a wonderful weekend, and I'll see you soon. Take care.